In this workshop, we're going to look at how we make and use brushes in Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to start with a very simple pattern brush, which I'm going to apply to my drawing of this duffel coat, and I'm going to create something to simulate a twin needle top stitch. I like to create my brushes as near as I can so that they're proportionate with my drawings, but they can still be scaled, and that's quite a useful thing when it comes to creating more detailed and complex brushes than the one we're about to create here. Now, stitches are generally very tiny, so I'm going to just zoom in on an area of my coat. I'm going to draw it just off the coat, but so I get an idea of scale. It's just easier to be in nice and close. I'm going to use this tool. This is the line segment tool, very simple little tool. I'm just going to click on my page here. The length of the line that I want to create is going to be the length of the stitch that I'm creating. So I'm going to make it 1 point long rather than a millimetre. A millimetre, when we're dealing with these kind of things, is huge. So I'm going to make it 1 point. So I'm going to type in 1 pt. For those of you who don't know, a point is a 72nd of an inch. So it is an imperial measurement, and it's generally used for measuring things like type. You can see it's defaulted here back to millimetres, and 1 point is in fact 0.36 millimetres. So if you want to and you prefer measuring in millimetres, if you can remember that number, then by all means type in 0.36 millimetres. I'm going to change my angle from 45 degrees to 0 and click OK. And I get this. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit further, and you can see it's pretty much a square. That's because it's 1 point long and my line is 1 point thick, so my line weight is one point. So I'm going to change that because that's a bit heavy for a stitch line. So I'm going to go to my stroke panel and I'm going to change my line weight here from 1 point down to 0.25. There we are. Now I like my stitches to have like little rounded caps because they look more stitch-like. If I have a round cap, I usually put a round corner on as well, although corners don't really come into the equation. So this is what my initial line is going to look like. So that's it. Now I said I was going to create a twin needle top stitch. So to do this, I'm going to just select my line. I'm using the selection tool here, and I'm just going to drag it downwards. And as I drag, you can see I can move it anywhere I like. But if I hold down my Shift key, it will constrain it, so it will just move vertically. It can move in other directions too. It can move horizontally, like so, and it can also travel on a 45-degree angle. But I'm going to just drag this down like that. Now I need to make a copy of this line, so I've still got my finger on the mouse button and I've still got my finger on the Shift key, and I'm also going to put my finger on the Alt key, and you'll notice that the cursor arrow has changed to like a double-headed arrow, a black and a white. Now that's telling you that it's going to make a copy of this line. So now when I release my mouse and then release the keys, you can see I've made 2 identical tiny little lines. And these are going to be the basis of my brush. So all I need to do is select both of the lines and then go to my brushes panel. Now I'm using a workspace called Essentials Classic, so if you can't see everything as I do, if you go up to Window, choose Workspace and choose Essentials Classic, you should be able to see all the same panels as me. So I've selected the 2 little lines and I'm going to my brushes panel just here, and I want to make a new brush. So I'm coming down to this little icon at the bottom of the panel and I click. This kind of brush is a pattern brush, so I'm going to choose pattern brush at the bottom, and then I'll click OK. I'm going to call this twin needle top stitch, like so, and I'm going to add some space. Anything between 50 and 100% should do it, so I'm going to go with about 60%. You can create multiple brushes with different amounts of spacing, and I might call this one twin needle top stitch 60, so I know how much spacing I've put in here. And then I click OK, and my brush should appear here. Then all that remains is for me to zoom out on my garment, and I can go through and pick up all these pink lines which I've already created. It's a bit of a cheat. And just click on my brush and apply them. It really is as simple as that. Oops. I'm just holding down the Shift key and selecting all the lines that I want to give the appearance of my double top stitch. And there we are. And that's it. That's essentially how you create a simple pattern brush.